So with further ado, I'll kind of dive in and provide you a nice little presentation here. I think when you're done, you will get a recording of this as well. You can go back and review over time. Okay, so really every warehouse is a building that's just completely full of transactions every day, right? A variety of different transactions between employees, between tasks, so on and so forth. But today, many of those transactions are not automated, and they rely a lot on paper trails, spreadsheets, and really kind of a fragmented system. I always tell people it's not an operations problem. It's never really a budget problem. Really, it's a design problem. So I figured the best way to show you this is to kind of storyboard this out and kind of the day in the life of an employee in a warehouse and how many different ways that lockers can be used throughout that warehouse. All these scenarios are actually real life scenarios or use cases with existing customers. And really, what we're focusing on now is creating much broader kind of networks of these solutions for each one of our customers. So typically, starting the day, people get a rush of visitors that come in that meet with employees, and whether it's vendors, customers, and what have you. Oftentimes, there's sign-in sheets, there's badges that maybe take somebody to come up to the front desk and print off that badge, or just give some standard badge that everyone uses and passes around. With Accessa's visitor check-in, it allows a variety of different ways to validate that user, check that person in, access and identify who they're meeting with, and making it very frictionless. So badges can be printed, and we know exactly who might be their host. At that point, management can actually see who's currently on site, who's off site. These are big things when it comes with insurance, liability, but also just understanding who's coming and going from your facility as well. Some big security points as to also take in consideration, and following this log of people and when they've come and gone is very important. At the same time, especially at the beginning of the day, that first set of mail comes in, and mail really starts to pile up. We've actually shipped stuff to some of our customers in warehouses for their asset lockers, and our packages actually get missed and completely lost. There's been a few times that we've had to resend packages because their mailroom is so unorganized and not knowing where things are supposed to go. Mail is currently tracked by spreadsheets, and often mail is delayed getting to the recipient, and really there's no real log of who got what when. Our software allows mailrooms to better organize, scan, and track this routing internally. No more clipboards, no more spreadsheets, no more guessing. Allowing you to see who's been notified, who's actually picked up their mail, and who maybe even need to be sent a reminder. These are problems that, the general problem is people typically think of is no more manual logging, no more lost packages. But additionally, some things that we've also found that solves is facilities are able to see that volume and able to, fine tune their budgets for next year. It is also something that we've seen from some of our customers. Along with mail, packages are starting to become, and package lockers are becoming more and more popular with our warehouse partners. Packages are also piling up with the mail. Employees, they might get dropped off at the wrong building, and no one's able to track these down. Package lockers, as you see in this industrial facility, can be set up, and you can quickly have employees or even the drivers themselves, UPS, FedEx, whoever's coming in to drop off the mail, can fulfill these lockers. No more front desk, no more stacked packages that people are trying to find in a package room. Additionally, you at the same dashboard, you get this same visual of who's picked up their package, what's still there, and allows you to really kind of track that data over time and allowing you to really kind of maintain consistency with your inbound packages. Through different times of the day, different shifts, our most common and often used use case for warehouse customers is our asset management, right? Tools disappear. They are left on a pallet. They're left on a chair. They're left in an office, and people don't know where they're at. This has become a really big problem and is only growing and growing as the cost of Zebra scanners and all these other scanners become more and more expensive. We've had companies that have lost over $100,000 in scanners a year, and they buy $50,000 worth of lockers one time, and then they have their annual software fees, but it mitigates that from $100,000 down to $5,000 to $10,000 annually. What's also really great about this is you can actually also manage that chain of custody at a far deeper level. You're able to see what the current state of those devices are. What's the condition? Is it in good shape? Is it broken? This also saves a lot of time in tracking these devices, but also saving time with employees, that they're no longer picking up a device that was already broken and walk to their job site, and all of a sudden they realize that scanner's no longer able to be used. Also, you can see when people have brought them back, what's still outstanding, and you can track this from one shift to another as well. You can assign devices to employees one-to-one, or it can be a much more dynamic relationship. One of the other things that's becoming more and more common, we've seen companies already like Grainger, Fastenal also do this, but it's becoming more and more common for us with individuals, supplies, and even partnering with those suppliers. And it's vending lockers. Oftentimes, the little things are what's really holding up somebody to get their job done, whether it's gloves, safety glasses, earplugs. It's hard to maybe track down, identify. You might start finding employees without safety glasses just simply because they can't find them. The other thing is too, a lot of these items tend to be thought as very low price point items, and it's not really thought to manage the access to these items consistently because they're such a low price point. But when you look at that year end of what was actually spent on safety glasses, earplugs, it all becomes, it all adds up, right? And that vending of seeing what items are being taken when is more common and growing. One of the things that we're also seeing beyond those pieces are stuff like labels, printer paper, specialty printer paper, even things like printers, small handheld printers and things that maybe when something is broken, they go get that item. We're seeing more and more of those higher price point items getting put into lockers for vending, that they're not going to bring that item back, but they're going to need it for their office or their job site when something went wrong. We're able to track all of these devices and all these transactions of when somebody took an item out and when it needs to be refilled. The next piece is whether that employee comes to work or when they leave, managing their personal belongings is becoming more and more critical. Why? Well, one, there's always a focus of reducing phones on job sites. So we're seeing more and more that they're focusing on having the employees put their personal belongings into a locker that's properly tracked. The question then becomes, well, Brian, can we just use a combination lock or just some standard dumb lock? And, for historical purposes, that's been commonplace. One of the things that we're seeing to be kind of valuable is being able to see another touch point of when they actually started their shift, right? Or they maybe clocked in but didn't use their locker, or they used their locker and didn't. It's another data point to properly track employees at the end of the day. Um, Allows you to see, when a locker's been assigned, if they've kept stuff inside of it. Also, the thing that we're seeing more and more, even now that we're 5 years removed, 6 years removed from the pandemic, is those hybrid workers. If you have office workers that come in only 2 to 3 times a week, putting their stuff into one of these lockers that's assigned to them. Again, another touch point to realize the access control of who accessed that locker when is still critical and much more valuable than just having a standard padlock on it. The next piece is IT, and this is still a smaller segment, but becoming more and more common for us as well. Um, Laptops and devices. I kind of want to talk about a few reasons how these are being used. So the most common is the kind of IT needs to fix my laptop, right? And especially with companies that have multiple locations but a centralized IT team, they might put their device or their laptop into a locker and said that it needs to be repaired. And that IT team is then notified that that item has been dropped off. It's also being used for new employees as well. We have a customer that has deployed lockers at locations that do not have IT teams, and they're pre-filling these locations. So it's almost kind of a vending style workflow, but it's for their IT, where they're putting their laptops and kind of their package for a new employee into the locker. And when that person starts, they get assigned a code and they access that code to get their belongings. That transaction between the IT team, especially with companies that are there's a lot of IT teams that are kind of retracting their size of their team and not having an IT person at every location. So this allows them to better track those things and understand when somebody who's picked it up, if it's in repair, or if somebody still needs to go pick their item up as well after they're repaired. So seeing that entire log is very critical in providing some points of efficiency where you're not having to connect with that person, have it sit on someone's desk for multiple days before it's handed off. It gets that device in the IT team's hands faster, and it gets it back to that employee faster on both ends. So that entire IT workflow is from start to finish. So different from the other use cases, we actually have the full flow for IT of when that user drops it off to when it's currently in repair or being worked on. And then when the IT team brings it back and assigns it back to a locker for that person to pick up. That is one full transaction for us. And the reason we do that is there's value to the teams to track that entire kind of chain of custody for that single transaction. Any questions so far? I've kind of jumped through some of these. No? Okay, great. One of the new stories from one of our customers is becoming that I thought was actually initially kind of wild, but once I knew the full scope, it made perfect sense. We have a customer that is putting their BOLs into a locker for drivers to pick up. It reduces the headcount at the dispatch office and allows them to ship out more trucks per week. The single locker system is able to drastically increase the amount of shipments that they can actually get out the door, and they reduce their headcount by 3 people. This is one of the more fun projects that we've dealt with, but the managing headcount or reducing headcount simply by automating that exchange of paper is quite fascinating. When I was first heard this story and use case, I heard that it was being used to exchange pieces of paper, and they were just going to be putting pieces of paper into the locker. And I was like, it doesn't, like, how does this pencil out? And once I knew the full scope, it made complete sense. And probably one of the quicker return on investments that I've seen. Again, automating that process of when those truckers come in, get loaded up, have their stuff already inside of here. Then the most important thing is you can also really track of when that driver picked up those that documentation as well. Everything is time stamped. Yard manager is able to see this as well, and they're able to track that, again, a chain of custody of when that driver picked up that item. Reduces lines for dispatch, uh, and it just creates efficiencies, especially for off hours, right? After 5 o'clock, you still need to take orders, but you don't have a full team there to do that. You could have somebody, midday fill these lockers with the documentation that can be picked up once that driver arrives. So really, I wanted to show all of these from start to finish. And as you can see, we have 8 touch points at a single facility. That majority of facilities could use all 8 of those touch points, and all 8 of those different touch points come into one single platform. So as I long kind of thought that we were asset managed or locker company or an asset management company, really it's a true automation company, and allows us to better track every transaction and touch point, and it creates a pretty significant impact to the bottom line, where all of these different touch points funnel in and can be managed from one operating system. As you can also see too, we're coming with some new products that, with visitor check-in credentials, that we've recently released over the last few months. That those are new to us. We can also go beyond the locker as well in some of these use cases where our software can be utilized even when a locker isn't needed, or whether it's space or budget or something of that nature. Some of the impacts of these are actually data points from 3 different customers of ours. Front-end desk and mailroom headcount for one of our customers has reduced by 32%, 33%. One customer, we saved over $180,000 in assets purchases from the previous year, from them just having to replenish their handheld devices. One of the things that we also tracked through a case study was reducing, on average, 6.4 hours per employee with 2 different touch points, but mostly focused around asset management, where the assets and the devices were having to be tracked walking down hallways or alleyways to find their devices to be used. These are pretty significant numbers. Once you all bundle it together and create, points of efficiency, again, it provides the opportunity for, real big impact to the bottom line and lowering headcount as needed. The biggest thing for us is focusing on that one ecosystem where, no matter if it's vending, parcel delivery, employee check-in, what have you, all that can be funneled to one operating system, and allows everyone from operations manager to other managers to properly manage the inflow and outflow of these transactions. Great question. Somebody asked, can lockers also charge batteries? Yes. All of our lockers can come with battery charging, and we can charge handheld devices and pretty effortlessly. So good question. What other questions we got? Any more? Is there anybody that's currently managing uh, got another question here. Is there a way to determine return on investment? It's a great question, and yes, there is. Oftentimes, through our scope and conversation, um, I'll answer this two ways. Through our scope and conversation with that customer, we kind of break down the ROI in all the different use cases. We also have ROI calculators on our website. So if somebody wants to go to our website, there's actually a pretty detailed ROI, for example, for asset management, where they put in uh, the cost of their devices, the amount of loss that they have, and a handful of other bullet points, and it kits out that ROI. But through that sales process, we really like to understand uh, their business specifically and break down ROI for them. How long does a typical integration take? Another great question. It depends on what we're integrating to. Sometimes we're integrating to ERP systems and other asset management systems. It really depends on what it is. Our APIs are relatively simple. Um, Sometimes the integration is just employee credentials, right? And those can typically be integrated in a few days. Another question here, can work orders automatically reserve and release tools? Yes, we can do that as well. So we can, depending on the work orders, we've automated with work orders where we can scan in a work order barcode that's connected and integrate with another device or another system, and it unlocks that order. Our locker is able to read RFID on devices to take and return to a locker. Yeah, we can do that. So we can attach an RFID, a barcode, a QR code to a device. We can also credential the user with an RFID. We can do, for a user, we can do RFID, user PIN code, email. We also now have facial recognition, so we can, scan the facial recognition of the user and verify them as well. So we can verify the user and we can verify the person. Can existing lockers from other manufacturers be upgraded to run Accessa software without replacing hardware? Yeah, absolutely. Now there's some that might be proprietary hardware that's kind of difficult to access, but we have taken over a lot of existing locker systems, kind of our bread and butter. But it does depend on, do they have a proprietary hardware? Even then, sometimes it's a pretty low cost switch where we just have to maybe swap out the boards and swap out a computer. Might be a couple $1,000 switch if we can't access their existing hardware. But we've done quite a bit of it. Yeah. Can a single locker bank support multiple workflows simultaneously, such as asset management, rental, parcel delivery, and employee? Absolutely. Yes. We actually assign every use case at the door to the door level. So you can have a bank that manages all those devices or all those different workflows simultaneously at one location. Great question. I think there was another one up here that I missed. What happens if a network is offline? We do have a temporary backup for at the kiosk that users can still engage with it. Additionally, oftentimes we do, provide redundancy, whether it's cellular connectivity or additional Wi-Fi redundancy to it as well. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Good. Excellent. Well, get everybody out of here about 4 minutes early. So I really appreciate your time. I'd like to keep these really short and simple through people's lunch breaks and in midday where they need to disconnect. We'll be doing a lot more webinars again. We kind of took a pause on webinars and now getting back into it. We have a webinar next week for, I believe, multifamily use cases and parcel delivery. But by all means, On our website, there's a webinar section now that you'll be able to track and sign up for all the webinars. So really appreciate your time, and you should also do the recording as well. So thank you very much. Yeah, thanks, Fred. Bye.